The Minecraft mob vote was rigged. You see, each year the mob vote asks players to
come
vote on which
on.
mob they want to see added into the game. And usually the final vote comes in really close to about 50-50. In 2022 though, things were very different. The options were the Rascal, the Tough Golem, and the Sniffer. And when the results came in, it was an absolute landslide. The Sniffer ran away with a whopping 55%. But then, how was that rigged? Well, look at what they showed off for each of the mobs. The Rascal just gave off an iron pickaxe if you found it. The Tough Golem was just a fancy item stand that moved around. But the Sniffer? We were told that this mob was extinct and that they could dig up ancient seeds. They set up a false choice. 2 lame options and 1 clear winner. 1, the obvious choice, and 2 others there to divide up anyone who didn't want the Sniffer. Why would they want that though? Well, in 2020, Mojang announced the archaeology update, and they've been building out their ancient world ever since, with additions like the Sniffer. That's why, though they'll never admit it, Project Playtime had more lore hidden in it than we initially thought. Hidden around the theater level are multiple scenes where baby Huggies are doing some very suspicious things. One scene shows a headless Huggy stomped to death by a giant cat bee. There's a Huggy doll that's hanging out of its mouth, and all of it while it's being ridden by yet another baby Huggy. Elsewhere in the theater, there's another scene that shows a small group of baby Huggies offering up a headless Huggy Wuggy doll to a much larger baby Huggy that's sitting atop a throne. Are these just fun set designs? Not a chance! These scenes are a grim look into Playtime Co's past. I suspect the baby Huggies represent toys, and the normal Huggy Wuggy dolls represent humans. A giant toy getting loose, killing and eating humans, all while under the control of another toy? Sounds an awful lot like when the experiments got out and started killing and eating employees under the command of Experiment 1006. The bigger baby Huggy that's being brought a dead human by smaller toys? Again, that's like the other experiments serving 1006, helping to keep everyone fed, as we saw in the tutorial. I'm excited to see if more of these scenes exist in future maps. Let me know in the comments if you've seen anything in the factory map, because honestly, we just started looking, and now it certainly seems like... Oh, and here, you were telling me about this. Okay, so there's the Realm of Flame.
So, I think...
Sorry, let me just read from my lore book. I love it.
Let me play my accordion lore book.
Here, I'll read from this end, you read from that end. Okay.
Okay, we'll be in the middle.
We'll be in the middle. We'll be like the nerdiest version of Lady and the Tramp spaghetti pasta scene ever.
Battle Spirits Saga is holding tournaments across the world throughout March and April to celebrate the game's launch on April 28th.
Thank you so
to find out
much.
where those are and how to join, visit the website battlespirits-saga.com or click the link in the description.
I just solved Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's biggest mystery.
Pokemon!
This right here is the Great Crater of Paldea, and it's one of the biggest mysteries in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. How'd this big ol' hole of swirling clouds in the middle of the map get there? Well, I think I got the answer. I suspect that the Great Crater actually connects back to an earlier game in the series, Pokemon X and Y. In that game, we're told that there was once a great Pokemon war. In that war, a character named AZ lost his beloved Pokemon Floette. And so, as the story goes, AZ created a machine that could bring his Floette back to life, and it works. But as the war rages on, AZ converts the machine into a weapon that could end the Pokemon war for good. AZ fires that weapon and forms a massive crater in the process. A great crater, if you will. And in case you still have doubts about this, the weapon is credited as the source of the Mega Evolution Stones. In fact, the whole thing was made of crystal. Paldea's Great Crater, meanwhile, is the main source of Terra Crystals. And if all of that wasn't enough, can you guess what Pokemon is seen all over that Great Crater? Floette, the same Pokemon that AZ's weapon was built to save. Not only does this tell us that the ancient war was between Kalos and Paldea, but it also means Super Smash Bros. Is the reason that Doki Doki Literature Club exists. Hear that right, friendos. Nintendo's ultimate crossover game led to the creation of some of the internet's favorite waifus. How, you might ask? Well, Dan Salvato, creator of Doki Doki, was a professional Smash Bros. Player before he started developing indie games. He's a Link main, by the way. Salvato was a key developer for not just one, but 2 Smash Melee mods, Project M and 20XX Tournament Edition. He then uploaded videos of the mods onto YouTube, teaching aspiring game developers about hex codes and how games store and access memory. Basically, he broke down how Melee's files could be modified. So now, let's go over to Doki Doki, where a major part of that game's mechanics are messing with the game files. The connection there is no coincidence. It is a link to his past. Salvato even said in an interview, quote, "Modding is oftentimes an incredible start to many future careers in the game industry, such as my own." So, there you have it. Time to troll Markiplier. I think you guys know at this point that Mark and I have a bit of a friendly rivalry. But now it's our chance to really get him. You see, earlier this week, Markiplier uploaded a video announcing that he's gonna be appearing as a character in the mobile game Dislight, and that fans can vote to decide what line he has in the game. It's part of a big sponsorship thing that they have going on together. Well, I'll have you know that we also have a video sponsored by Dislight, and they didn't ask me to join in any of the legendary god stuff that's going on, despite the fact that my jacket is totally on brand for them. So you know what? I'm gonna do a bit of trolling. Down in the comments of this short, I'm gonna pin a link to the top where this vote's happening. Don't worry, I know sometimes there's spam down there, so just make sure it's the pinned comment. That right there is your official link. From there, you're gonna see some choices that the brand has given Mark to say. Ignore all of those. Instead, I'm gonna need you to go down to the comments and write that you want him to say, "But that's just a theory."
But
That's
hey,
one of
that's
Mark's lines
just
for
a
this game.
theory.
If you want bonus points, include a second line in there. Probably it's something memeish like, "It's Morbin." Roblox Stores is ripping you off. In the new Hotel Plus update, we're introduced to everyone's favorite black market salesman, Jeff. He sells you items that help during the playthrough, but you also have the option of giving him a tip. If you donate 100 gold coins to Jeff, you get an award that says, I can go to college now. College, though, isn't exactly cheap these days. So it got me thinking, how much are these gold coins actually worth? The average college tuition in the US is $25,707 per year. So assuming that Jeff is just paying for his freshman year, then a Doors gold coin is actually worth $257.07. That's a lot to be carrying around in each playthrough, and Jeff is taking full advantage of that fact. A bottle of vitamins is gonna cost you $12,853.50. A simple wooden cross clocks in at the massive $64,267.50, which, you know, feels like just a slight ripoff when you could get one over on Amazon for like 10 bucks. Then again, these crosses can save your life, and can you really put a price on that? Clearly Jeff can, because Mario is a lying, cheating fraud. Mario first appeared as Dr. Mario in the titular Game Boy game in 1990. And according to Smash Brothers, this was because he, quote, decided to have a bash.
One more time. Mario! Okay.
Mario is a lying, cheating fraud.
Mario
first appeared as Dr. Mario in the titular Game Boy game in 1990. And according to Smash Brothers, this was because he, quote, decided to have a bash at the whole medicine thing. Now, nobody can just throw on a white coat and become a doctor. You have a licensed physician, you have to do 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, and then at least 3 years as a resident. That is a total of 11 years of education. However, Mario first appeared in Donkey Kong in 1981, meaning that he went from plumber to doctor in 9 years. And given the amount of time he spends saving princesses, racing cars, and being a soldier, somehow doubt that he's putting in the time to graduate, let alone early. Unless, of course, Mario and Dr. Mario are actually two separate people. I mean, they are two separate characters in Smash. Plus, in the Super Mario Kodansha manga, the two of them physically meet, which is, you know, pretty hard to do if you are the same person. Maybe Dr. Mario really is the long-lost third Mario brother. And no, I'm not talking about that fake one that you've seen making the rounds on YouTube. It's either that, or I know how to kill Deadpool, but it won't be easy. I mean, he literally has Wolverine's healing factor, who has recovered from a single drop of blood before. The healing factor makes him basically immune to disease. Even cancer can't kill this guy. Plus, when his cells die, they immediately regenerate, which means that Deadpool is not gonna be getting any older. So then, how do you kill him? Well, believe it or not, it's actually pretty easy because the healing factor has one huge weakness, the brain. Memory. You see, memories aren't a physical thing inside of your brain. They're actually electrical signals that bounce between different neurons in your brain in a very specific pattern. And sure, Deadpool's healing factor can regenerate those neurons, but it can't regenerate those specific patterns. They'll forget the electrical signal. So destroy Deadpool's brain, and even when it grows back, he won't be able to remember that he was Wade Wilson in the first place. And believe it or not, but like the worst X-Men movie ever actually got this one right. X-Men Origins Wolverine showed this exact same scenario happening to Logan. I guess they had to make up for that horribly inaccurate Deadpool with some horribly accurate neuroscience. So, there you go. What would you do if you had enough money to buy a TV show? Just like outright buy it. Sounds absurd, but it's actually happened before. There's this really great show called The Expanse, originally on the Sci-Fi Channel. This is one of the greatest shows that Sci-Fi ever produced, but it cost too much money to make, so they had to cancel it after 3 seasons. But guess who was a fan of The Expanse? Jeffrey Bezos. Yep, Amazon's own Lex Luthor, founder Jeff Bezos. It was a pretty well-known fact online that he was a fanboy, so fans campaigned for Amazon Studios to pick the show up. It got to the point where they were flying planes over Amazon spelling out, "Save the Expanse." Even Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin personally emailed Bezos about this very thing. But probably none of that needed to happen in the first place. Amazon was already well on their way to exploring what they needed to do to pick up the show. And when Bezos was at a convention attended by the show's cast, he got up on stage and let the world know that Amazon literally had bought the show. It ran for 3 more seasons before finishing out. In summary, Jeff Bezos' favorite show was canceled, so he said, wait a minute, I'm rich. And so he outright bought the rights to it. It's stories like this that make me think Superman's Clark Kent disguised with the glasses would have 100% worked, and I'm gonna prove it to you. You know how Superman disguises himself as Clark Kent just by wearing a pair of glasses? 12 years ago, there was a famous viral video that asked you to count the number of times a pair of basketballs were passed between a group of friends. The answer was 15. Then came the twist. The video then asks whether you saw the gorilla. What? Rewind the video, and there he is. A man walks through the frame wearing a gorilla suit. Most people don't notice him because they're too focused on counting the basketball passes. This experiment shows that when you're focused on one thing, you selectively observe that one thing and nothing else. It all comes down to observer bias. That's the tendency for people to notice what they expect to see rather than what's actually there. What does all of this have to do with Superman? Most people aren't expecting to see Superman as a nerdy, soft-spoken, slouching, glasses-wearing reporter at the Daily Planet. So they don't see Clark Kent as Superman. And you don't have to take my word for it either. Superman actor Henry Cavill once hung out in broad daylight in Times Square while wearing a Superman shirt next to a giant billboard of his face, and no one noticed him. That is why I'm convinced that The entire plot of Glass Onion is spoiled in its first 10 minutes thanks to an Among Us meme. The film opens with the world-famous detective Benoit Blanc doing what most of us were doing during the pandemic, playing Among Us. He's awful at it because
I'm very bad at dumb things.
But Blanc's zero IQ gameplay foreshadows the entire rest of the story in 3 ways. 1. The entire plot is basically one big game of Among Us. Someone's been murdered and the characters call a team meeting to figure out who done it. 2. This character, she's not who she appears to be. She is literally an imposter disguised as her twin sister. 3. In the game of Among Us, Blanc gets caught because he kills another player while out in the open. This is exactly what the real killer does later in the movie.
What did we all actually see? You handed Duke your own glass.
But even better, Blanc initially dismisses Miles as a suspect because there was no way Miles could be that dumb, and yet he was. Exactly as dumb as Blanc was in the game. That Among Us scene wasn't just a joke for gamers. All the answers are in plain sight, you just have to look past the distractions. Writing like this is genius because it doesn't ruin the film on your first time watching, but on rewatch, you realize that